What is up, guys? Welcome back to another UFC prediction video. This week, we got the last card of 2024 UFC Tampa, Buckley versus Covington. Last week, we did pretty good on predictions, going 10-4. The only 4 picks being incorrect were Eric Anders, Max Griffin, Vicente Luque versus Themba Gorimbo, and also Nate Landwehr versus Doo-Ho Choi. So, pretty good overall from picks perspective. Did very well from a betting perspective, up over 10 units. So going to be going into some of my bets for the card as well today, and also full card predictions as always. Without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right into it and look to continue with some pretty good predictions. Our first fight on the card, we got Davy Grant versus Ramon Tavares. In this fight, I'm going to be picking Davy Grant to get it done by decision. He's the older fighter here, but in my opinion, he's the better striker. He's fought better competition. And even though he's had mixed results, he's always looked pretty good in there. He's a game opponent, and he's a guy that throws a lot of significant strikes. I see this being mainly a striking battle. Ramon Tavares is predominantly a boxer. You'll probably remember his fight earlier in the year versus City at UFC 297. And they had a pretty fun fight. Ramon got the nod by split decision. He was on the Dana White Contender Series twice, lost to Series City by an early stoppage, and then bounced back versus Romeus and was able to get into the UFC. Second UFC fight here for him, but David Grant, he's fought really good guys. Jonathan Martinez, Chito Vera, Adrian Yanez, Daniel Marcos, and he's always made a competitive fight no matter what. And he even stained Jonathan Martinez with a beautiful right hand over the top, I believe it was. I think he's the more talented striker. Lots of kicks, lots and lots of volume, front kicks up the middle, leg kicks, looping punches from the hips that are hard to see, and does have a little bit of thud in his punches. So pretty good fighter overall. Ramon Tavares is pretty one-dimensional. He has some boxing, but not a ton of power in his hands. And, David Grant is a guy that takes a lot of damage, but is very durable. I don't see Ramon Tavares scoring a knockout here. So I'll pick David Grant to win a decision over the course of 3 rounds. Our next fight on the card, we have Miles Johns versus Felipe Lima. I'm going to be picking Felipe Lima to win this fight via 3rd round TKO. Miles Johns is all right, but, he's lost by TKO to the likes of Mario Bautista. And, last time out versus Douglas Silva de Andrade, who is just an old washed fighter realistically. Miles Johns doesn't have much volume, really is just a guy that relies on power in his hands, doesn't have very good technique with his boxing either, doesn't incorporate a lot of kicks, does have a grappling base, he can go to the wrestling if he needs to, but Felipe Lima 100% is better in almost every aspect of MMA here, except for maybe punching power. His submissions are there. We saw that last time out versus Muhammad Naimov. Came in on short notice after his mother passed away and got a win, which, in my opinion, really shows a lot of character from a fighter to be able to push through such, terrible adversity and go out there and get the job done over a game opponent in Muhammad Naimov. And look, Felipe Lima looked great in that fight. Beautiful boxing combinations, slick kicks. He's very fast. Normally does fight at bantamweight, so he's going back to his regular weight class here. Very good hands, quick, and he's also just a clutch fighter. He was down at the end of that 3rd round versus Muhammad Naimov, and he was able to come back, reverse position, and get the rear naked choke. I think he was getting the better of the striking exchanges, and realistically on the ground, he was scrambling and giving Muhammad Naimov all he could handle. And Muhammad Naimov is a pretty good fighter, and he was able to finish him. Impressive on the regional scene. And, Brazilian fighter fighting out of the All-Star Gym in Sweden. I think that, he's a much more talented fighter than Miles Johns here. Quicker, sharper, much more dynamic. I think he gets the job done here by TKO. I think he can drop Miles Johns and, just kind of TKO him on the ground. Or I think he can get a takedown, slick, and then just ground and pound TKO with elbows. I think that Miles Johns just doesn't have the technique to be successful in the 135-pound division. Our next fight on the card, one I'm looking forward to, Sean Woodson versus Fernando Padilla. Now, this is a battle of just the lanky stickmen. of this division. Both of these guys are really tall, long reach. Sean Woodson, 12-1 impressive record, and has done really well in the UFC. You know, really good boxing. Last time out versus Alex Caceres. Made that a little closer than you might like to see, but, you know, still looked good. You know, is a pretty impressive boxer for sure. Long jab, stiff jab, likes to pop that out there a lot. And pretty good volume, good cardio. Most of the time he does go to a decision. And you can always trust him to, you know, be defensively sound and, you know, just win via volume and significant strikes, and normally scrape by a decision win. Consistent fighter, pretty good defense, pretty good boxing defense, head movement, and overall I like him as a striker. You know, you might have to worry about his wrestling defense, but Padilla I don't think is going to be taking or shooting a lot of takedowns here, and Sean Woodson does have pretty good takedown defense, to be fair to him. Padilla, you know, came into the UFC and beat Julian Erosa by TKO. Pretty impressive. Julian Erosa was able to submit Sean Woodson. And then Padilla fought Kyle Nelson, absolutely crumbled, did not look good whatsoever in that fight. And that fight really kind of showed us the level that Padilla was at, in my opinion. You know, look, scored a lucky punch over Julian Erosa, who isn't durable. And then last time out versus Luis Puello, was able to just tag him with a clean right hand, wrap up a submission. But Puello, he's a boxer, and he was coming into that fight with a really significant, you know, height and reach disadvantage, and also just didn't have the ground game to be able to get out of that submission whatsoever. Sean Woodson, much more defensively sound. I think in a battle between two lanky guys that rely on their reach a lot, I favor Sean Woodson's skill set being more effective rather than a Padilla who kind of has to be explosive and wild and throw a really hard shot every now and then and expend a lot of energy. You know, not a ton of kicks. Like I said, I don't really worry about the submission threat for him here against Sean Woodson unless it is after him getting dropped perchance. But I like Sean Woodson here. I have money on him, and I think he gets the job done by decision here. I don't think Padilla is a super polished fighter. Yeah, he has finishing potential, but give me Sean Woodson, consistent, higher level of competition, cleaner boxer. I think he gets it done by decision, just landing more significant strikes throughout the fight. Our next fight on the card here, we got Klose versus Joel Alvarez. This will be a pretty good fight. Joel Alvarez is, you know, a fight finisher for sure. Last time out with the TKO over Elvis Brenner, looked fantastic in that fight. We know that he has really good submissions, and the striking really looked to have come around in that last fight. And, you know, the knees in the clinch were clean, the long rangy straights were clean. And I like to see that. I like to see a guy fight behind his strengths, which his strengths, you know, are really his frame. He's a tall fighter with a long reach. Klose, good grappler, a guy that does have, you know, decent stand-up for the most part. Pretty average guy. I think, you know, his wrestling and his takedowns, top pressure, definitely where he succeeds the most. You know, memorable performance against Beneil Dariush, and that was a really fun fight. Klose last time out versus Joaquin Silva, you know, was able to get the job done, just mainly grappling, kind of stinking it up, clinching against the fence. Did get dropped in that third round, and I'm going to pick Joel Alvarez to get the job done by TKO here because I think that Klose is very hittable. You know, you look at that Dariush fight, got tagged clean many times, TKO'd. You see his last fight versus Silva, you know, getting dropped with the right hand there. Silva, lower level fighter, you don't like to see that. So, you know, the durability may not be great for Klose. Joel Alvarez has been TKO'd, but that's against, you know, Armin Sharkarian, as Chael Sonnen would say. No, Armin Sarukian, vicious ground and pound, but, you know, that's Armin. Much, much higher level fighter, not even in the same stratosphere as a Klose. I think Joel Alvarez, you know, is going to be live for submissions. I think he can use that to reverse positions if he needs to in certain grappling exchanges. I favor him in the clinch along the fence with the long knees, and I think that, you know, in the stand-up, it's going to be, you know, him just dicing up and playing with his food realistically until he gets to TKO. Much better striker. Give me Joel Alvarez here to win by second round TKO. And he's also a parlay piece for me as well. We'll get to the second fighter later. Our next fight on the card, we got Michael Johnson versus Azaitar. I'm going to be picking Michael Johnson here to get it done by decision. Look, Michael Johnson, been around forever, has had so many UFC fights, recently been a really 50-50 fighter, went on a pretty bad loss streak, including, a TKO to Josh Emmett, losing to Clay Guida, which is not a good look whatsoever. But, realistically, Michael Johnson on his day is a great fighter, but we know how inconsistent he is. Can beat Dustin Poirier one day and then get slept by Diego Ferreira the next. So you never know with Michael Johnson. The chin is always in question. Azaitar, though, is just not a high-level fighter whatsoever. 2-2 in the UFC, beat two absolute nobodies that aren't in the company anymore, and then his last two fights, got stained by Prado, and then who else did he fucking lose to? I don't even remember who this guy lost to. He's been very inactive as well. Michael Johnson not been the most active guy either, but, coming off a good win versus Jamal Emmers. Yeah, he also got TKO'd by Matt Frevola, Azaitar, that is. So, has been TKO'd before. Michael Johnson does have very, very quick hands, good boxing. I won't be surprised if Michael Johnson's able to get a TKO here. But Azaitar, in his own right, most of the time when he does win, it is by TKO. So there is always that chance with Michael Johnson being an aging fighter that he can get clipped with a clean shot. We've seen that plenty of times. Diego Ferreira, Josh Emmett. Michael Johnson has a really bad habit of when he's exiting out of the pocket, he'll brush his left hand down for some reason, like he's brushing a kick, instead of keeping it tucked like Peter Yan. But, that's cost him many times. Hopefully he's fixed that in his game. But, last time out, like I said, versus Jamal Emmers, looked pretty good. Landed his boxing combinations, the significant strikes that we're always used to. And I think he gets the job done here. I don't think we see a TKO. I think it actually will. It was over Darius Flowers. I got Jamal Emmers and Darius Flowers mixed up. Darius Flowers, he beat last time out, and I think he's going to go out here and do something similar versus Azaitar. Just land clean boxing combinations, stay safe, win a 3-round decision. Our next fight on the card, we got Navajo Stirling versus Tukkos. And I'm picking Navajo Stirling to get the job done by second round TKO. Pretty high on Navajo Stirling. He was in my Dana White Contender Series Prospects to Watch video that I made a while back. City kickboxing prospect here, in my opinion, kind of has a mixture of an Israel Adesanya and a Kai Kara France style. Does sit on his shots well like a Kai Kara France does, like Izzy used to. Don't even get me started on that performance versus Tukkos. But, likes the rear hip feints like Izzy, long rangy jab, good counter hooks around the guard, pretty good teep up the middle. He has the classic city kickboxing style, but he is a very clean striker, very good athlete, in very good shape. And, he seems to be pretty dialed, and I think he's very ready for this occasion. And he's fighting Tukkos here, who, has been TKO'd by Ming Yang Zhang, who I don't think is nearly the same type of level of striker as a Stirling. And he's taking his TKO losses, a guy that, is getting another shot in the UFC here, in my opinion, just to lose to Navajo Stirling. Navajo Stirling's a hefty favorite, minus 500 now, rightfully so. I do have Navajo Stirling and Joel Alvarez in a parlay here, prospect parlay. I think both of them get the job done with ease, both by round 2 TKO. I think Navajo Stirling makes really light work of Tukkos. The kickboxing and striking pedigree is just on a different planet. Very easy pick. Our next fight on the card, Daniel Marcos versus Adrian Yanez. I'm going to pick Adrian Yanez to get the job done by decision. I think that Adrian Yanez is the much better fighter than Daniel Marcos here. I think Daniel Marcos, last time out, I was at that fight last time out versus John Castaneda in Louisville. Looked good, got some knockdowns, but in my opinion, he's just not overly impressive. Look, he has a good stance, good technique, good kickboxing for the most part, understands range, solid right hand. But, he's got some calf kicks and a teep up the middle. But I just don't see a fighter that is fast enough to give Adrian Yanez problems. Normally in a stand-up fight, I like to go with the more technical, cleaner striker, which I'd probably say Daniel Marcos is. But I see a lot of paths to victory for Adrian Yanez here. And people have been writing off Adrian Yanez ever since the loss to Rob Font and Jonathan Martinez. I think that he's going to come back with a chip on his shoulder after getting a win last time out versus Salvador. I like Adrian Yanez getting it done here. Daniel Marcos, I like to look back at his fight with Davy Grant. Look, he lost that fight 30-27 in my opinion. He got schooled by David Grant, did nothing on the feet, was backing up. And I know David Grant is an awkward striker, but David Grant is nowhere near as fast as Adrian Yanez, and he's nowhere near as dangerous with a knockout threat. Older as well. Look, Daniel Marcos didn't do shit in that David Grant fight and somehow was able to come away with a dirty, nasty robbery. Also, Daniel Marcos is low-key a dirty fighter. In his last 3 fights, he's kicked his opponent in the nuts each time. And I don't really like to see that, honestly, from a fighter. That shows me that he's dirty. Willingness to win, maybe, but I don't like that whatsoever. Look, Adrian Yanez, look at his fight versus David Grant. Absolutely schooled him. Definitely a clear 29-28, and definitely didn't have the adversity that a Daniel Marcos faced in that fight. Adrian Yanez went in there and schooled David Grant, was shoulder rolling everything, beautiful counter shots, and Yanez, where I think he will have a lot of success in this fight, is with his counter boxing in the pocket. Daniel Marcos, he'll extend with his chin up in the air with a big right hand, and Daniel Marcos, does get clipped in his fights. Adrian Yanez does as well. I mean, we saw the Rob Font fight, but look, Rob Font is a much better boxer than Daniel Marcos, and the undefeated record will probably make you look twice, but an undefeated record coming out of Peru and South America, Latin America promotions means a whole lot less than, coming out of Russia or Eastern Europe undefeated, something along those lines. America undefeated in the LFA, for example, Fury FC, solid promotions. Then I will really take an undefeated record seriously. These guys that are coming out of Latin America have been fighting bums. I mean, what was that one dude's name? Rafael Cacaria, that was fighting my boy Ibo Aslan at UFC 308. Ooh, undefeated Brazilian prospect. Dude got stained and covered up like a fucking ball 30 seconds into the fight. I don't take any merit into a undefeated Latin American record. He's looked okay in the UFC, but he's been fighting bums, Ari Quilang quit on him. John Castaneda's a dog shit fighter, so that's not even on the same level as Adrian Yanez. Adrian Yanez, very good head movement, and doesn't use head movement for no reason. He's very good at countering off of it, really good hooks. We've seen that, in his fight versus Randy Costa. Beautiful combination to finish that fight. You take a look back at the David Grant performance, boxing masterclass. He has a great jab, much better jab than Daniel Marcos. I think that'll be landing for Adrian Yanez here. I think he's going to have learned from the Jonathan Martinez experience. I think he's going to learn to check the low kicks a lot better. Marcos does like to go to those low kicks. Marcos also likes to shoot a front kick up the middle a lot of the times. Adrian Yanez is very, very, very good at brushing that front kick up the middle and firing off a left hook or an overhand right behind it. I think he can have success catching Daniel Marcos with one of those counter shots here in this fight. Probably just winning a damage-based decision, but I won't be surprised whatsoever if Adrian Yanez is able to score the knockout. Like I said, much cleaner boxer, very good kicking game. Daniel Marcos with the low kicks and the teeps, but Adrian Yanez is a pretty good low kicker as well. We remember that head kick TKO he got when he was on the come up. Give me Adrian Yanez to win this fight via 29-28 decision. I like him here at underdog odds, have a unit on him, and I think he gets it done over Daniel Marcos. I think Daniel Marcos is overrated. Our next fight on the card, we got Dustin Jacoby versus Vitor Petrino. And, look, I think that Vitor Petrino is going to win this fight by TKO. Dustin Jacoby is a good striker, but he's taken a fuck ton of damage and he has no chin left, in my opinion. Dominic Reyes absolutely stained him last time out with the left hand to the knee right behind it. You look at his performance before that versus Alonzo Minifield, was schooling him, but would just get tagged on the chin and just kept going down. Kind of a similar situation with the Khalil Roundtree fight. Lost that fight because, he was peppering, but Khalil Roundtree would just smack him with a huge left hand, huge right hook. Jacoby would do the jitterbug, and he always loses fights based off of damage. Had the Kennedy and Nzechukwu TKO, which looks great, but Vitor Petrino, He's stronger, younger, more durable, hits harder, has solid stand-up in his own right. I don't think he's just going to get peppered for 3 rounds. And Petrino, last time out, of course, did shit the bed versus Anthony Smith. But, you know, I think he'll learn from that experience. I don't think that he has any submission threat to worry about whatsoever with the Dustin Jacoby, where, you know, Petrino does like to go for the takedown sometimes, so that was always a threat with old Anthony on paper Smith. But I think that Petrino is able to get around 1 TKO here. He's not as technical of a striker, but, you know, he is a marauder, and I think he can maraud forward with a big overhand and stain Dustin Jacoby. If not, I think he can get a ground and pound TKO, frankly, because he does have pretty good wrestling. You know, looked good in the Anton Tukkos fight in terms of his grappling ability. You know, solid striking on display versus Tyson Pedro. I think he can use, you know, his big tree trunk legs to kick Dustin Jacoby pretty damn hard. I just don't think Dustin Jacoby is physically able to compete with these guys anymore in the light heavyweight division. Give me Petrino by round 1 TKO. I won't be surprised if Dustin Jacoby hangs it up soon. Our next fight on the card, we got the crash out Manel Kape versus Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva coming in here off of a good win over Cody Durden. A nice uppercut. And, you know, Manel Kape had a lackluster performance versus Muhammad Mokaev last time out at UFC 304. Broke his toe, so, you know, you got to give him a little bit of a pass for that, realistically. Kind of similar situation to Cyril Gane and Alexander Volkov, which was a horrible robbery. But in this fight, I'm going to pick Manel Kape. I think that, you know, this is going to be mainly a striking affair. Bruno Silva may mix in the grappling. I doubt it. But Manel Kape, he's a very good striker. You know, good knees, pretty solid kickboxing skills for the most part, and does have power in his hands for a flyweight. I think that this will probably go to a decision. And over the course of 3 rounds, I do see Manel Kape getting the better of the striking exchanges, being first and last. And, you know, if there is going to be someone getting dropped in this fight, you know, Manel Kape does have a pretty good chin. I think that if anybody's going to be getting dropped and losing around that way, it would be Bruno Silva. I do have questions about Manel Kape's output, but I think that he's going to come back into this fight and seriously try to win because he hasn't been doing too great lately. So, yeah, give me Manel Kape by decision. 30-27. Our next fight on the card, we got Cub Swanson versus Billy Q. I'm going to be picking Billy Q to get it done here. You know, lost against Yusuf Zalal, which wasn't a great look last time out, I believe, for him. But, you know, he has wins over Damon Jackson, has wins over Alexander Hernandez. And those are respectable wins. You know, did eat a big knee versus Edson Barboza, which wasn't a great look. But, look, Billy Q, pretty solid, well-rounded fighter. Can go for the takedowns if he needs to. I don't think Cub Swanson's going to be, you know, looking for too many submissions here in this fight. Cub Swanson, you know, old head fighter, over 40 years of age now. Been around forever. We know the deal with Cub Swanson. Good boxing. But in this type of spot, I always go against the older fighter that has had a bad injury in the past. Cub Swanson, if you don't remember, I believe he tore his ACL and his MCL. Or just destroyed his fucking knee versus Jonathan Martinez. That wasn't necessarily a pain leg kick TKO. Pretty sure Jonathan Martinez blew his fucking knee out. And he was out for a long time. Older fighter. Has been injured. You gotta go with Billy Q here. Has only really lost a decent competition, realistically. I think he can get the grappling going. Push a heavier pace if he needs to. Cub Swanson did alright versus Fialho last time out. Not Fialho. Philly last time out. But, you know, Andre Philly did get the job done, and he's a lower level fighter in my opinion than Billy Q. I think Billy Q has a more well-rounded skill set, decent striking, and I think he can, you know, mix in the grappling here, get some ground and pound going, and get the job done by decision, maybe a late round TKO, but I'll lean a decision here for Billy Q over Cub Swanson. We move on to the main event of the evening. Joaquin Buckley is going to absolutely stain, knock out, destroy, embarrass, and hopefully end the career of Colby Covington. Colby Covington was never that good. He's always been overrated. I've been saying this for years. I remember there was a time Remember back in the day, good old Chael, back in like 2020, 2021, when he made good videos. He used to go on these rants. You know, there's 3 divisions where there's the next best thing. You know, you got Robert Whittaker, you know, right behind Izzy. He's number 2, clearly, and then there's a gap. You got Max Holloway right behind Alexander Volkanovski, and then there's a gap. And then you got Colby Covington right there with Kamaru Usman, and then there's a gap. We got 3 fighters who are the next best thing, and it's not even close. I remember when Chael Sonnen and people would put Colby Covington in the same conversation as a Max Holloway, a Robert Whittaker in their respective divisions. In my opinion, that's blasphemy and disrespectful to Max Holloway and Robert Whittaker. Dude, Colby Covington, man, what are you saying, man? Look at the wars with Kamaru Usman. Don't even get me started on the CEO of EPO, who's also overrated. But the best moments of his career have been losses. And he got his jaw broken in one of them and TKO'd. Dude, and his way up to the belt, he fought fucking old heads who are just lower level fighters. I mean, Damian Maia, rear naked choke guy. Dude, he's a BJJ nerd who was older at the time. I'm not putting too much stock in that. Fucking close ass fight with RDA, who just isn't very technical. I remember, you know, RDA, he's fought everybody and everybody thinks he's the fucking GOAT, but he's never been that great of a fighter. I mean, he got the belt, but like that was in a period of the division where there was just a lack of talent realistically. And, you know, that was the RDA that was getting older. I know he's not the complete washed version of now, but still wasn't a prime up and comer that Colby was able to get the job done over. You know, beat Robbie Lawler. I mean, dude, are we really going to take that much stock into beating these older fighters that I know at the time, 2017, 2018, they weren't as washed as they are now, but still, they were on the decline at that time, let's not forget. And, you know, before that, Brian Barberena and Max Griffin, 2 guys that are just not good, literally 50-50 fighters. Brian Barberena got cut. Max Griffin could get cut tomorrow, for all I care. Has never had good grappling. I mean, come on. Colby Covington's never really had a great win. And you'd say his best win is over RDA. Are you kidding me? I can name 15 other welterweights that have a better fucking win right now on the roster than fucking RDA. And other than that, recently, the only fighters that he has a win over were washed old men that are no longer in the company. Jorge, the bum, game-bred Masvidal, and the ghost of Tyron Woodley, who broke his fucking rib because he was so old and got slammed on the canvas. He was done. And that's fucking Colby's only TKO. This is his only highlight, dude. Colby Covington has this bobo striking of a fucking duck, like a literal duck swimming in a pond, how he flaps his fucking wings when he, you know, flies out of the water. That's how Colby Covington strikes. Pathetic. No technique whatsoever. And, you know, when you're going to war and getting outstruck by the sloppy man striking of Kamaru Usman with the fucking double Superman jab, you're not going to try and convince me that Colby Covington is a good striker. And look, I mean, I know he has the high-level wrestling, the melting pressure of Colby Covington. I mean, where was that versus Leon Edwards last time out? Broke his foot, shit the bed in front of Trump. Trump walked out. Dude, Colby Covington has always been overrated. People say one of the best welterweights of all time, man. I mean, maybe, but look, Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington were the most athletic welterweights in a generation of welterweights that were not skilled, and that all that you really needed to be successful in that division at the time was athleticism. Look how much the division has changed since then. It goes without saying, realistically, and it's easy to say that Joaquin Buckley, who is the most improved fighter of 2024, is going to go in here and absolutely stain Colby Covington. Joaquin Buckley has been super active, getting better on a fight-to-fight basis. And look, I don't see Joaquin Buckley, who is literally a big ball of muscle. That's literally how he's built. He's built like a bowling ball. That's just a bicep. That's literally Joaquin Buckley, built like Mike Tyson. I don't foresee Colby Covington getting a ton of takedowns on him. Joaquin Buckley, you know, if you want to go way back in the day when he lost to Logan Storley in Bellator and got out grappled, then, you know, okay. He's made hella improvements since then. Like I said, the most improved fighter of 2024. beat Vicente Luque in a fight that was weird, but I'll give him credit for it now. Shit. I mean, you kind of have to. Looked good in that fight with the striking for the most part in terms of being dangerous. Not the most technical fighter, a lot of wasted movements with the head movements and the big meaty hooks, but he's dangerous. He's super determined. He's fucking hungry as a lion on the come up. He hasn't tasted, the big money checks that Colby Covington has. He's not sitting with Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Mar-a-Lago. He's in the gym with the gritty soldiers grinding. And he's getting ready to take Colby Covington's fucking head off this weekend in his home fucking state. And I can't wait to watch it. I hope Joaquin Buckley literally breaks Colby Covington's jaw again for the third time, after Jorge Masvidal fucking crashed out on him at the steakhouse. And I hope that he goes out cold in front of Florida. I hope they have to stretcher him out because that's what he fucking deserves. Think back to the press conference for 296. The comment about Leon Edwards' father, that was fucked up. And I get the character, don't get me wrong. I love a character. I love, a Chael Sonnen and a Conor McGregor. But you don't say that shit to another person about their dead father. That's fucked up. I hope that Colby Covington, gets a broken jaw. I hope he loses teeth. I hope he seizes in the octagon like Bryce Mitchell. I hope that he really goes through a lot of pain here and, gets the fucking shit beaten out of him versus Buckley, who just KO'd Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who's a fantastic striker. I know it's a past his prime Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, but I'll take it. He was in there at all times, showing the grappling. He's improved his grappling very, very much. You saw that offensively in the Nursultan Rudzaboyev fight. At a severe reach disadvantage, was able to land big, powerful strikes, rocking Rudzaboyev as well. And I still think Rudzaboyev's a good fighter. I picked Rudzaboyev in that fight. I still rate that win highly. And, showed a very, very diverse game. Is just leaking confidence at this point. I talked about the Vicente Luque win. You can look back at his TKOs, versus Fialho with the beautiful head kick. Is dynamic with his striking, can mix up the targets and the striking attacks. A performance that I love to look back to as well in the UFC is performance versus Duraev, another grappler that does go for a lot of takedowns, goes for that control time. He's a guy that, was getting fucked up by Joaquin Buckley. Buckley landing big uppercuts, counter shots, head kicking him on the way in for a takedown. Absolutely stained him in that fight. And I think that Colby Covington, who has always been super overrated and has a limited skill set and is a fucking 2017 era fighter in terms of his skill set, I think he's going to get absolutely fucking stained versus Joaquin Buckley here. I jumped on Joaquin Buckley at -175, got him in a parlay with Felipe Lima and Navajo Stirling at heavier odds. -175 was a steal. He's damn near 3-1 at this point. I think he makes it look easy with a round 1 or 2 TKO here. A big Mike Tyson type of hook, similarly to what he got Wonderboy with. He's just on a streak, been super active. Colby, not hungry, has, been there, done that, fought for the belt 3 times, lost every single time. Pussy. And, him and Dustin Poirier are in the same fucking category when it comes to that shit. But, dude, Buckley's gonna stain him easily, end his pathetic ass career. And I really think that we see Colby Covington lay down the gloves in the octagon, if he's even conscious to be able to do so.